Once my friend was telling a story. It felt endless, but interesting. By the end, I made up the idea of a character who is already dead, and once a year he tells the same story so well with these theatrical pauses, so everyone can't stop listening to him. And only at the end, the group of friends realize that nobody was actually there. But when they start sharing the story, the character turns out to be the same for everyone with a small difference. Everyone has heard their own date of death, and one guy has it tomorrow. Therefore, he is going to find the theatrical man before his time runs out. Let's talk about how to observe real people, their behaviors, quirks, interactions, to gather material for authentic characters and dialogue. In my previous video, I talked about how writing in English changed my art and identity, and I mentioned collecting voices. Today, I'll talk about it in more detail. Have you ever seen a couple argue in low voices, barely opening their mouths, telling something through their teeth? That's very typical Russian arguing in public, like this. Я кому сказала, сука. It's so funny and terrifying at the same time. Try to spot it. In London you've got every chance. Or the old man with a tiny dog and a military walk. That's not just a walk, that's a backstory. The first time I realized that people watching could help my writing was when I studied acting. We had a block of exercises called observations. We observed situations in real life and brought them to etudes to show them in class. We had to find silent situations. For instance, notice people who resent each other and everyone tries doing their own things in silence. But you feel how could cut the tension between them. How do you describe that? How do we show it? We often think that's inner tension. But inner tension appears in chained movements, very perceptible looks. Usually, what we feel inside shows outside, often in the opposite way. We might smile when we're sad, aggressive when terrified. When you learn the patterns of others, you start noticing your own. The longer you do this, the more often you see yourself from the outside. You become kinda your own watcher, and sometimes it helps with motivation. There were many observations in acting classes. Silence is just one example. We observed homeless people, people in the underground, looked for decision-making positions, or collected verbatims from people to recreate them. All of it I brought to my writing, and that time I realized that I don't need to look for inspiration on the inside. It's all on the outside. Stories are about people. And people watching gives you real-life characters. When I create a story, I don't need to make up a character. I just need to collect them like a puzzle from what I observed. Of course, there are lots of schemes on how to create deep, interesting characters, and they work. But if you have no idea what to write about, it's better to start with observations, listening, or reading the news. Watching helps you collect emotions, rhythms, contradictions. It's really great that we live in the era of the internet and we can find many opinions and different perspectives on social media. You definitely should use it. But people are different. On camera or in their texting posts, they don't speak or behave like that in real life. Even if it's so cozy and safe at home, sometimes you have to leave the nest and observe people in their natural habitat. You can't Google how tired nurse eats her sandwich on the bench at 7 a.m. You have to be there. I like watching people, and can get a little too fascinated sometimes. Once in the underground, I stared at people and listened to them so carefully that I became a part of their group. My husband grabbed me and said that was inappropriate. And I totally agree. Let's try to be respectful. No staring, no photos, just take mental pictures or notes in your phone or notebook. When I do research about a certain topic, I ask people if I can turn on the voice recorder. For this kind of research, I talk to people who agreed for an interview. We did many when we wrote a script about graduate of the children's home. We talked a lot with adults who grew up in orphanages, and that was the new world that opened to me. When you know what you are writing about, it's easier just look for people from that environment. It's not easy if you write about drug dealers or some closed communities though. In this case, I would start with journalist investigations, documentaries, and videos from court hearings. For inspiration, I like going to pubs where there are a lot of interesting characters and sometimes they're ready to talk, train stations, especially in small towns or farmers markets. Of course, parks and IKEA. It's just pure theater. But you can watch people anywhere. Just follow the social rules not to be a creepy intruder. If you are still figuring out where to start, here is a little checklist I made up for you. It gives you a lens what to actually notice. Body language. How do they hold tension? Where is the center of mass in the body? Does the person move from the head, chest, or hips? What gesture do they use? Speech patterns. Do they interrupt, pause before speaking? Voice too high or from the chest? How fast do they speak? Contradictions, my favorite. Expensive coat and cheap shoes. Confident voice and nervous gestures. Saying sad things with a smile. Relationships. Are they performing or being themselves? That's really interesting. Some people behave like they're performing. I was surprised a couple of times by such people. When you know them long enough in different situations and realize that it's not just a form. Some people build their form and fuse with it. Then even they no longer know who they were. Details. What are they carrying? How do they sit? How do they look at others? And of course, use your imagination. Who that person is, where they're coming from, what they want, what they do. My first film was created by observing. It was about a woman who starts over her life in her 50s, after a divorce and after her children have grown up. I knew nothing in my late 20s about what it's like in the 50s. I interviewed people, I went to a dating club for people over 50. I used their phrases in dialogues and recreated situations from their life in my character's life. After the premiere, I was asked, how do you know our lives if you are so young? It's so truthful. It was such a precious feedback. It's not just copying life. Art is a mirror, and we need to reflect life with all of the laws of drama. Mix real life details with fictional intentions. Let characters grow after giving them all basic settings. I didn't understand before how a character might have their own will, but then I realized that when you had built a real person, they won't do what you want. So you need to change something in the beginning so that the end will change. Maybe it's proof of determinism. Anyway, if you want to create a fascinating character, not only observation can help you. Next time, let's talk about different drama schemes to help create a character. One more bonus, when you observe people, it's not just about them. Even when you focus on others, it reveals how your brain works, whether you like it or not. Also, the exercise builds empathy, attention, curiosity. Even in family, you start listening, not just hearing. You start understanding people's motivation, why they do what they do. For instance, I stopped being offended because I know what might be behind people's behavior, and it's easier to live when you step outside of your own head. I encourage you to try this exercise today. When you meet your partner or friend, try to look at them as a stranger. What do you notice? Or go to a park, sit for 10 minutes, and just observe. Your next character might be walking past you right now. Don't miss them. Thanks for watching. Bye. But then I realized, oh my god.